All right, we're on, mate. Tom Rushton, how you doing?
Good, good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man.
Excited to be here with the Sprint
Yeah.
Revolution.
Yes, the Sprint Revolution is live and kicking. Where are you coming from?
Czech Republic. We live about an hour west of Prague in the Czech Republic.
Now, from what I understand, newborn baby just recently.
Yeah, thank you. That's right.
Congrats.
She's gonna be 6 weeks in on Saturday. So we're recording this on September 25th. So she's born middle of August.
Middle of August. So was that right before the swimming started?
No, I got back on, I can't remember, August 3rd or 4th. I got back on the very last day of the swimming.
Oh, okay.
Our due date was September 2nd. We had actually tried to plan things around the Olympics, and
Yeah. Good
we'd
idea.
hoped we'd hoped to have a few weeks break, but we had 2 weeks break, so that was okay.
Yeah, it's not bad. In 2 weeks, and then the rest of your
Yeah,
life, you got this newborn baby
yeah,
that's going to be
yeah,
attached to you
exactly.
forever.
Yeah.
What's that like for people who haven't gone through it for the first time? What's it like for you?
Having the baby,
Yeah.
um, I think as a dad, it's I try to do as much around the house as I can, and I try to like take off any of the pressures and the chores. But
Yeah.
honestly, like with a newborn, there's not a lot I can do. I can try to placate her when she's a little bit upset, but I
Yeah.
can't feed her. I don't have breasts, so it's just I just kind of try to help out and be there, support.
Yeah, you're
She sleeps
pretty
pretty
useless.
well. Like
Mm.
we only get up like one time in the night, so it's not too bad.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. Excellent. Well, that's good stuff. So, um, mate, how was your Olympics? How do you feel about it? If you had time to process it with the baby and everything else, have you had a chance to sit down and kind of analyze how it went for you and your team?
Um, yeah, I mean, we were happy with it. I had 6 athletes there, and I think 5 of them did really well. So that's pretty good. Actually, 4 of them did really well. We did have one that got COVID during the meet, and she actually still swam pretty well, but not obviously as well as we'd hoped.
Tell us who the six are.
Um, so I had 3 from Israel: Anastasia Gorbenko,
Uh-huh.
Dari Golovati, David Gerchik from Israel, 2 from Hong Kong. That was Siobhan Haughey and Camille Cheng, and then 1 from Estonia, which is Kregor Zirk.
Wow. Okay. And then and that's kind of a ragtag group, isn't it? Like to have those athletes. Do you have a base of training anywhere particularly where you hang out for a while, or do you move around a bit?
We've been our the group has evolved since Tokyo, um, not through any type of planning process, but just kind of people have come together, and one thing has led to another. We spent a lot of time out in Hong Kong, the Sports Institute, and the Hong Kong Swimming Federation and the Sports Institute have been really helpful to me and to the rest of the swimmers. They recognize that supporting Siobhan means bringing people around her to train with and to support her.
Right.
So they've been fantastic, and we are all welcomed there. And we spend a lot of time there, but we also spend a lot of time in Europe because, generally speaking, we have better competition in Europe.
Mm.
Obviously, the Olympics was in Europe, and um, we do some training camps, and then we've been doing 2 altitude camps a year, and the venues for that are quite limited. So last year, both of those camps were in Flagstaff in Arizona, and we typically will do a camp and then a competition. So we went directly to the U.S. Open in December from Flagstaff, and then we went to San Antonio in April, I think, the Pro Series in San Antonio. So, I mean, we spend a lot of time up in Flagstaff, so that's definitely a home away from home. Hong Kong Sports Institute is definitely, and then yeah, just competitions in Europe and everything.
Yeah. You're regarded as one of the better coaches in the world. There's no doubt about that. You've built your reputation and had a lot of success and been on different teams, ISL teams, and things like that. But for those that don't know your full background, give us an idea of where you came from, where you started.
Yeah, people ask me where I'm from, and I have no real answer for that. When I was going to get married in the Czech Republic, I went, and I had just come back from Hong Kong, and my wife and I went, and my Czech language isn't very good, so she's translating as we go to the city hall, and she explains to this person that I'm born in England, so I have a British birth certificate, but I grew up in Canada. We went to high school in Canada, so I have a Canadian passport. And then the woman asked for some ID, and I'd just gotten back from Hong Kong, so I had only my Hong Kong resident card. So that was what I gave her, and she thought I was joking. And then even when I went to apply for residency in Czech, you have to fill out a schedule of where you're going to be, like when you're going to be at home. And there was very few times, and they were like, "Does he even want to be here? Like, is he going to live in Czech?" And I lived in Turkey for a few years as well, working with James Gibson at Energy Standard, which was fantastic. And I went to college, Kenyon College in Ohio, which was an excellent experience. I was coached by Jim Steen there, who's 2 weeks ago, I guess, inducted into the ASCA Hall of Fame. And then I went to Indiana University, to the Councilman Center for the Science of Swimming. Worked with Dr. Joel Steger there. Had some great people around me there as well. So yeah, I've been kind of everywhere.
Something Sonny told me yesterday that I didn't know. You won the 500 in Division 2 4 years in a row. Is that correct?
Yeah, Division 3. Kenya's Division 3 school.
Division 3.
Yeah. Yeah, my first year, I'd never swum yards before I went to college. And at the time, it was a 3-day NCAAs. I think the events, the order of events, I think is the same now in the Division 1 competition. But yeah, at the time it was a 3-day meet, and I came in as kind of a backstroke or butterflyer, and I didn't have any real event the first day, which was the only choices were the 50 free, 200 IM, and the 500. I definitely couldn't do the 50 free. That was not a question. But I was doing the 400 IM, so that was like, maybe I should do 400 IM. I think I did one 500 earlier in the year, and it was okay. I don't remember what I did, so I entered the 500, my first NCAAs, and the first year I was in heat 1 because I only swum it once, so I had a fairly pedestrian time, and I made the final. I went out very fast and died, and I made the final in 8th place. I remember my college coach Jim Steen telling me, just go easy for the first 250 and then you can go. And so I was well behind, and I started sprinting at halfway, and I guess because I was in the lane 8 and nobody knew who I was, and because I was behind most of the race, I kind of ended up in front at the last 25, and everyone tried to catch me, and I won by like 8 100ths or something like that my first year.
Wow.
And then it became my thing, and I just kind of like built on that. So it was kind of funny because it was never an event that I intended to compete in, but it ended up being my most successful. So
wow, crazy how it works out like that. Yeah, especially when you have the choice between the 50 and the 500, man. If you could look back and go, why did I do that? No. Poison
maybe if you had any sprinting ability. I have 0, so that was definitely not a question. I think my only question about my swimming career is maybe I should have done the mile, but well.
Yeah, the further you go up, the better. But now your parents are involved in swimming too. Is your dad was a coach?
Yeah, both my parents swam in 72 in Munich.
Oh,
my dad was a 100 backstroker. My mom was a 200 flyer.
oh.
And my dad was a career coach. He coached for a number of different countries. He spent a lot of time in New Zealand, a lot of time in Singapore. And he worked in Greece for a while, as well as Canada and the UK.
Okay. Oh, there we go. It makes sense now why you're kind of all over the world.
Yeah. And my mom was coaching. For her coaching was a retirement job, and she just retired from her retirement job of coaching earlier this year. So.
Oh, nice. I was just saying goodbye to my beautiful fiance. She's going to work, so give her a nice little kiss goodbye. So,
ciao.
Ciao. It's early here. What time is it there? It's what is it? 6.
10 to 4 in the afternoon.
10 to 4, 6:50 in the morning. So you were on different planets. But yeah. So Dad was a coach, and what kind of influence did he have on you other than teaching you to, go and travel the world?
I would say he didn't teach me to go and travel the world, but probably he did. I think, you know, moving around with my parents definitely helped me to be independent. And so even,
Yeah.
I remember even going to college, people were getting homesick, and that just seemed like a very strange thing to me.
Me too. I felt the same way when I was at Auburn. I was like,
Yeah,
these people are getting homesick. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like,
yeah,
this is incredible. Like, we, I couldn't understand it. Yeah.
yeah.
You want to swim faster? You need Sprint Revolution resistance equipment. This isn't just gear, it's a game changer. Our propellers, power socks, stretch cords, parachutes, and paddles are all designed to build explosive speed and power in the water. If you're serious about taking your swim to the next level, you need the best resistance gear out there. Sprint Revolution, where speed is born.
I remember when I was very young, my dad took me to the swim. He was coaching a team in the UK, Salford Triple S. And he took me a few times to the training sessions. I remember asking him in a confused way why they use meters instead of lengths. Like why you say 100 meters? Why don't you say 2 lengths? And he didn't. He kind of struggled to explain to my young brain. But other than that, I didn't really work with him at all. He didn't coach me ever until after my first year college. He was coaching in Greece in Athens, and I went out. Me and one of my college friends went out, and we spent the summer living in Athens and working with him. Then that was the first time that he ever really coached me. But I do like. I think that we have some similar traits, some personality traits that lend themselves to coaching. Um, and obviously growing up around him, and my family, my parents were swimmers. My brother also swam world championships in
Wow.
Montreal in 2005. And my wife has been to 3 Olympics. Like I feel badly for her daughter. She's
Yeah.
there's no chance for her. There's no
Yeah.
chance.
She's got no hope. She is definitely going to be swimming at some point soon. So
Yeah.
well, that's cool though. That's cool to have that in your blood and that to go to, and uh, the family to talk to. In terms of the personality, you said what type of personality do you think you have? How do you coach? How does it come across?
Um, I think that I'm a pretty patient person, and calm. I try to keep my emotions in check, even though I get nervous and anxious and sometimes frustrated and everything with the athletes. I try to keep myself pretty calm and even keeled, especially at the big competitions. When the athletes are when they're starting to get nervous, I think that they need somebody who's, going to just be a rock for them in those moments.
Yeah.
Um, and I was in India last week teaching a coaching course, and I tried to like distill the personality of a coach into, I think you need to be patient with urgency, because you need to be patient with especially when you're working with young kids. You want them to develop and be faster, but you can't rush that process. You have to wait and make sure they master one skill before you start adding another one. But you also, as a coach, that the competition is coming up, or whatever it is that their focus meet is in a few weeks, and you know that they have to get going. So I think being patient with a sense of urgency is the biggest skill in coaching.
Right. Now, I asked you before we got on here to share a couple of workouts, because I'd seen the way you write your workout, and I find it interesting in the sense that it uses some form of the color system. So talk to me about the influence of the color system on you and how you've adapted it for your team.
Yeah. So we talked about my dad's influence, and he actually later in his coaching career, he did develop a color cone thing, which my dad was colorblind. So I found it incredibly amusing that he tried to incorporate colors into his coaching because he couldn't see them.
Wow.
Um, and he would always run. He also felt himself to be a graphic designer of some ways, and he was terrible at it because, again, he was colorblind. He would send me ideas for logos and things, and I was like, "This is just awful. Like it's like actually offensive to my eyes." Um, but my college coach, I said Jim Steen, he used, I think it was like a very old, at this point, very old USA Swimming kind of John Urbanchik type color system. And when I started coaching, I took that and just used what he had been doing, and then subsequently over the last few years built up my own, which I think I have 9 different energy zones in there. So we have white, pink, red, orange, blue, green, purple. And then we also added gold because sprinting is very important. Gold is like
Yes.
an extra level of speed, which I think most training systems lack.
Yes.
So yeah, so we have that, and we have a sheet. I'm actually working right now. One of my focuses for this quad is trying to work more on delivering coach education and like throwing out as much material as I can. I feel like I was so busy just trying to keep everything together in the last few years that I haven't really. I want to give more back to the community, so that's why I went to India last week and did a coaching course. I was in Vienna the week before doing some presentations, so I'm really trying to push that. And I do have a website, coachrushton.ca, and you can download a training zone chart off that. And also my dad's cone chart if you really want to.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, we have some workouts set up, ready to go. I'll click on them now, and then you can kind of talk us through some of these things.
Yeah. Let's start in the middle. Let's zoom that. So this, you'd asked me to share a few workouts, and these are kind of Siobhan centric sessions that we did in the past, let's say 6 months leading into the Olympics. One of the sets that we did, this is like there's no magic to any of these, but we started to do these dive 100s off the block. For us, it would be purple. They were all out efforts. I think we started before the Asian Games, which was late September 2023. So between the Fukuoka World Championships and Asian Games, I think was the first time we did this. And at that moment, I think I suggested we did 5 100s off 6 minutes. And she come back to me and said, I think 4 is the most I can do. So we did 4 100s off 6 minutes at that time. And it actually made her physically sick. She ended up missing. We did it on the Friday night. I think she did about 50% of the Saturday morning workout and then was off for a couple of days because she felt so terrible. But we progressed that, and we've been doing that now pretty much before a competition. We'll do it about 2 weeks out of an in-season meet, or a little bit earlier, like we did this, as you can see here, 3 weeks before the Olympic Games. So yeah, we did 5 100s off 8 minutes. Nothing crazy, but it was a good set. Some of these sets, this is the results of that set. And some of these sets, I think, when people ask me what sets we should talk about, I try to think of the sessions that, in my mind, are like head turning sessions when we're on the deck. So because we're going, and a lot of the time there are other teams training in the facility. We did this one. We were actually in Slovakia. We did this one. The Slovakian national team was there, and the open water team from Israel was there. There's a couple other people, and we did this set, and we did this another version when we were up in Flagstaff, and the Aussie team was there. And yeah, people like to watch these sets. Like, if you're coaching, especially if you're coaching a slightly less interesting session, and you see people standing up every 5 minutes, it's kind of fun, and they get into it. And Siobhan had a good one here. She was 54s all the way through.
Is that just in a regular training suit?
I believe that I made her wear a racing suit on this. Yeah, it's
Okay.
in a racing suit.
Okay.
In a racing suit here. She does not like to wear a racing suit in training, but I've insisted on it for the past year or so because, psychologically, even if you're in a race suit, you're going to be faster than in a training suit. When you see, if it's half a second faster, again, we know it's faster, but you still see that on the board. I think that makes a pretty big difference.
How do you
So
feel? Just before we move on, how do you feel about racing suits in season from the very get go? I'm kind of taken over. Let me go back to the screen here so we can talk real quick. I've obviously taken over an age group program, and I think these kids are very much used to, and I'm talking about 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. They're very much used to kind of just putting a suit on at the end of the season, and and I think that's how we all used to do it. But I see more of the college and the pro athletes really changing the way we do that now and going into racing in suits throughout the whole season. What's your take on that, and how has that evolved in the past 10 years for you?
Yeah, I mean, when I was coaching age group kids, we did do, and I really liked doing it at both sides. So we would definitely start the season in training suits. Sometimes I think we struggled because some of the meets didn't allow you to wear non-FINA approved suits, and companies have no incentive to have their training suit approved for competition, which is frustrating. So there's some circumstances where you can't. So if you go to a pro series meet, you can't race in a training suit because it's not an approved racing suit, which is frustrating. But we definitely would start the season in our training suits, because those in-season competitions there, however way you slice it, if you do a competition in September, October, and that's your best time for the season, you're going to be disappointed one way or another. So you may as well acknowledge that you're going to progress and use the training suit, and then that gives you an extra layer of ways to improve. I used to use charts in our group where you would have kind of goals, like percentage away from your best time. We talked about, if I'm remembering, I think we said you want to be within 2% of your best time at any point of the season once you started racing. And we kind of counted that as like November. And we say, if you're in an easy meet for you and you're just cruising through, you can be 3% of your best time in the heats. But we also, I think we had 4% off your best time with a training suit. And that seemed to be pretty appropriate. And it still gave them a goal to shoot for. And then on the other side of the season, if I had good athletes, I really enjoyed, and I remember vividly some in Canada, they called it, I think it was called the age group championships or something like this, like junior national type thing.
Yeah.
Having them race in a training suit in the prelims, because if they're a good athlete, some of those competitions, it's pretty easy for them to advance.
Right.
But when you take away the crutch of the racing suit, it still makes it a bit of a challenge, and it's kind of fun. They feel like, oh, I can do this in a training suit. I can do it anywhere. So I like that as well, like flipping it on his back and doing it towards the end of the season. That was really good.
Cool.
We don't have really any meets now that we go to where we could wear a training suit. Like I said, you have to wear a World Aquatics approved suit. So it's just not an option, unfortunately.
Yeah. All right, let's get back to this then. Keep talking us through some of this.
Yeah, so that's our first one, basic stuff. Next one over here, we've got 850s 4 different ways. This is like a real classic for us. We've been doing this set now. Kregor Zirk did this set a lot of times before Tokyo. It kind of stemmed from me trying to think about all of the different components that go into creating your race and trying to manipulate
and
various
you're talking
ones.
primarily about like 200. This would be a great 200 set.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay.
I think of myself as the group that I've been coaching, they swim 200s. So obviously Siobhan also does 100. Kregor Zirk also does a 400 free. Anastasia Gorbenko does 400 IM, but they all swim 200s, and they kind of like, that's their center point. So when we're looking at, especially this set, this is a 200 pace set. So we've got, like I said, we call it 850s 4 different ways. And we do 5 different ways, but we only ever do 4 in one session. So this particular one, we always start with 850s, where you progress 1 to 8, so you get faster in each one, but you have to hold the same number of strokes on every 50. And we try to have that centered around what they would do in their second or third 50 of their 200. So if they would do, I don't know, 35 strokes in their third 50 of their 200, we kind of want them to start at that and hold that all the way through on this first bit. And it's kind of a bit of a prep set, because when you start the first, if you're descending 1 to 8, you're not starting super fast, but they do get down pretty quick. I'd say by number 6, they're probably going 200 pace.
Okay.
Easy swim. The second round, we use a tempo trainer. We use a tempo trainer a lot in our workouts. So on this one, so the first one, we're limiting them on their stroke count. We're saying you have to do the same stroke count every time. The second round, we're trying to hold the same stroke rate or tempo. So here it's 200-meter race pace stroke rate here, or it would be, if you're American, it would be tempo. And I'm asking them to do the same number of kicks as well. But then the same number of kicks that they would do in their 200. So if they normally do, like Siobhan does, I think 4 to 6 kicks in her 200. So she would start off there. And on this set of 850s, you're adding 1 underwater kick every 50. So you're doing the same number, same stroke count, same stroke rate, adding 1 kick per 50. So if you start off, and the backstrokers, they will go well past 15 by the time we end these, because, they're typically going 10 to 12 meters anyway in their 200. So if they're adding 1 kick every 50 in this, they go, maybe 20, even farther, 20 meters.
Okay.
Third round, they can use a tempo trainer if they want to, but this one is just race pace. And we do this one from the middle of the pool, so they don't push off the wall. They can pull on the lane rope a little bit to get some speed, but I start the watch when they're swimming and their head passes the 25-meter mark, and then when they come back through 25. And this one is very difficult. Everyone says this is the hardest set to get. If you are able to get to all 850s holding your 200 pace, then you're probably due for a best time.
Right.
This is very hard.
Do you
We do
do
this.
you do that to a foot touch or hand touch?
This one here is mid pool to mid pool, so you wouldn't touch.
All right. Gotcha.
You would just, and you can do this short course as well. When we do it short course, we would do it. It doesn't really matter. We do it either 10 meters or 10 yards in, swim the 25, and then 15 out. Or you could do it 15, 25, 10. It doesn't really matter. The other ones we typically do to a foot, because they're you're thinking about the middle piece. So
Right.
And then on this particular one, we did this one's second 50, so it's not really 850s, it's 4 100s. First 50 easy, second 50 progressing, and really just trying to get the idea of like being able to do your 200 pace without just pushing off the wall and going. The other way that we would do this set is we would do 850s on a descending pace time, starting at whatever this is. So here, this one is a minute 30 pace. So we would do 850s, 1 on 130, 1 on 120, 1 on 110, all the way down to basically no rest on the last one. That one's also very hard.
Wow.
So these are fun sets. This one we do a lot I'd say we probably do this one 6 to 8 times in the season. And we do it at altitude sometimes. This particular version was at altitude. And what we do is we would progress the interval over the season. So when was this? This was in March. I think we typically start on a minute 30 or a minute 40 down at sea level. And then we would go up to altitude in maybe November and do the same interval, but at altitude. And then we do it again down at sea level on about 10 seconds faster interval. And then we do the same at altitude on the same interval. And then we come back down and do another 10 seconds faster. So it kind of makes it a little bit more difficult as you go.
Right. Why do you like 50s as kind of the best way to get a gauge on how their 200 is going to go?
We try to do more than a 50. The next session I'll show you has 65s and maybe 100. I can't remember. 75s maybe. But I like those mid pool ones. They just seem to be very relevant. It incorporates the turn, which I think if we always do 50s from a push, we don't get the turn. We almost always train long course. So if we do the 50s from a push, we miss the turn piece.
Right.
And the turn piece is probably like the biggest difference maker in some of these athletes' races. And a 50 can be challenging if you do repeats of them, but it's not so debilitating to do a 50 at 200 pace. It's not so debilitating that you can't do a lot of it in a session. If you do hundreds at 200 pace, you know, so this is 1200 meters at 200 pace, this session that I just showed. So you'd have to do 12 100s, which, I mean, to do that, you could do it, but to do it with the kind of quality control that I would be looking for, to do it at the right look, the right stroke count, the right tempo, I don't think my athletes could do that.
Yeah.
So maybe if you had better athletes, I guess you could do more hundreds, but something that we're working towards and that we try to push all the time is trying to increase our interval distance. It's very difficult, but you know, we're always trying to be better. So maybe next year.
Yeah, I was going to say, you know, that's the truth, isn't it? You do a season and you say, well, how can we be better? You just don't repeat a season. So it's like, I guess, in looking at this, you'll look at ways that you can tweak it.
And the first set was hundreds, to be fair.
Yeah, right. I like that. What is Dean doing? What's Dean doing? Have you got in Dean's head yet? Have you figured out what he's doing with his girls?
He has a great squad. Dean has a great squad, and we'll talk on the pool deck. But he's also a very closed book. He doesn't like to share. I know that I heard a story once that you went down and he invited you over for a barbecue and he wouldn't let you come to the pool deck. We're very open. Anyone can come train with us, join a camp. You know, we're always very open. I don't have any secrets. But I don't know what Dean does, but I do know that he's got a great squad. And you know, when you have, I mean, you were in college coaching. Like if you have a great squad, you just, you know, that there's a momentum to the group that is very hard to. It's very hard to beat that type of thing. And he's just got a great group of good athletes. He's got the girls obviously in the events that Siobhan swims, but he's also got other athletes that are real good as well.
Yeah, Elijah Winnington.
Yeah.
It always helps to. I mean, I think talking to the girls in the squad, they don't always like to pitch themselves up against each other. So, and maybe Dean's orchestrating that. And I've heard about Siobhan; she prefers to train with the guys too. Is that right?
Siobhan likes to race in the training sessions, and you know, when you're as good as she is, there are not many women that can race you. So she prefers to race the guys because she wants to race. Right. She also loves training with Anastasia Gorbenko because she's swimming really well, and you know they can race a lot of things. And you see that, you know, Siobhan had a good year in breaststroke. Nastia is a good breaststroker, and they will race frequently in breaststroke. And a lot of our workouts, Siobhan will switch off and do some breaststroke just for fun, and then race Nastia. But I think the difference too is they're not racing the same event. Like, you know, Dean has some athletes who are, and I don't know this, I'm inferring, but he has athletes who are competing at the Olympic Games, the World Championships in the 200 free. And, you know, I wouldn't want to race them every day all the time, because I've seen that before where you have two champions and you pit them together every day and then you end up with one champion. So
right.
I don't know that that's better.
Where are we at in your eyes in terms of specialization? I'd say let's talk about that. So, you know, we saw a situation on the men's side where all of the guys in the final who swam in the final were different than all the guys that swam in the final of the 100. Right? And then a lot of those.
You're talking about 200 free?
Well, I'm talking the 50. Sorry, so the 50 free. All those guys were different to the guys that swam in the 100 free, and then there was a lot of different guys swimming in the 200. So you see this wide variety of men now who are specializing in sprint free, 50 free, and then they've got their hundreds guys that can swim 100/200, but there's a lot of specialization in the 100 as well, and then you got your 200 guys. So you're seeing more of this specialization on the men's side, especially between the 50 and the 100, because it seems like they're almost two events now. Like that they don't even relate to each other in terms of the technique that you do. Breathing patterns are completely different, obviously. The way it's swum, the power and the aggression. So, but we're not seeing that on the women's side. Maybe like a Sarah, right? Sarah wins the 50 and the 100 and has dropped the 200, but will we see the women go that way in the future? Will it become a situation where women will get stronger and get faster and start to specialize on the 50, make that a pure, unique event as opposed to the 100/200? You think?
I think the 50 is a very different race, as you know.
Yeah.
I don't see. I mean, you make a good point, because I typically would say that you can't swim the 50 and the 100, and I believe that for the men, you don't see people do the 50 and the 100. I think Flo did a best time in the 100 this year, and he swam well in the 50, and that's almost the exception to the rule. And it's just not something you typically see. I think if you want to succeed in the 50, you typically have to go all in the 50. On the women's side, women's swimming in the world is very weak. And I don't mean that Sarah's slow; she's great. But if you come back and you look at the top 8 and the top 16, it's not very good. Let's say that.
In the 50.
In any event,
Yeah.
I know that we had some extra competitions this season, which potentially diluted the results in some ways. But if you look at, even in Fukuoka, the top 16 in some of the women's events they're really not very fast. And I mean, the women's 200 breaststroke, I remember this one, the women's 200 breaststroke in Paris, if you made the qualifying time, I think you were 4th or 5th, which is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, my
So
fiance swam in 2009, obviously. Well, actually, she didn't swim with a suit on. She was one of those rare people that didn't swim with a suit in 2009. She just swam with a regular suit. But her time from 2009 would have finished 5th in the 200 breast in Paris.
yeah, I mean, yeah, the people, the top end are obviously, they're progressing and they're doing great. But I think we need to figure out how to get the majority of the women's fields to progress. So I think this isn't really answering your question, but in the women's side, the reason that we're seeing people be more successful in multiple events is because, like in the 50 and the 100, is because there just aren't that many women swimming well. So the competition is not there to knock them out. Where in the men, it's definitely not the case. But you do have a lot of people who are swimming many events very well. Obviously, Leon Marchand is a great example, but you've got people like Duncan Scott. Lots of people who do try to swim a number of events. Whether or not they're successful, or whether they could be more successful if they specialize, I don't know. It's a good question.
Yeah, I think you're always going to have those people that can swim multiples. I mean, they're just genetic freaks, or they put themselves in a situation where they can do that. But I think in terms of medaling and maybe even go beyond that and say in terms of winning, I think it is coming down to a specialization of sorts in many events. Not all of them by any means, but certainly I think that's the way swimming is going, and I'm seeing that more and more over the past few Olympiads, where it's like, okay, yeah, the specialization in events is incredible.
Are you in need of a pace clock? Looking to finally upgrade those ancient analog clocks? The SWIMNERD Pace Clock is the most innovative digital pace clock. Go to swimpractice.com to check it out.
Have you heard whether the 50s of strokes are going to come in by LA? Have you heard any confirmation on that yet?
I haven't heard any confirmation. I've heard a lot of people say that they think it will, and I think that would be great personally. Although I don't, especially for the reasons that I just said, I don't really coach 50s. Some of my athletes do a 50 once in a while, but we don't train for the 50. And I would encourage, if there was a 50 swimmer who came to me and said, I want to train with you, I would encourage them to find a better fit, because I don't think that I would be a good fit for them.
Yeah, that's how I feel about the 1500. Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's, on the other hand, though, we look at the top end, we look at the medals and everything, and that's exciting to talk about. But the majority of people are not winning Olympic medals. For most people, I mean, even like I said, Siobhan, we added the 100 breaststroke. It's kind of a fun event this season, and she got a medal at World Championships. And I think that having those extra events takes a little bit of pressure off some of the other ones. The Estonian boy, Kregor, that I coach, he qualified for Tokyo in the 200 free. And when I think he was 12th. He was in the semifinal in Tokyo, 12th, 13th, something like this, in the 200. And we looked at, you know, if you're a swimmer, he was 20 or 21 at the time. If you're a swimmer who is, you know, at that age and you've made a semifinal at the Olympics, the next obvious step is let's make the final. But we looked and we were like, you know, the opportunity to make it to the next level in the 200 free is very slim, but the 200 butterfly seems like a much more open event. Let's focus on that one. He'd also done the 400 free in Tokyo. So having different events allows you to pivot a little bit if you see an opportunity for success. And also, yeah, like if you're stagnating or getting frustrated with not doing a best time in your main event, but you can go off and swim a different event, I think that makes a huge difference psychologically for athletes. That's why IM swimmers are so great. They can just pick up an event and do it at a pretty good level and set a good best time and then move on to a different stroke for a while.
Right. What do you think about Siobhan in terms of going another 4 years? You think she's going to continue to do that?
I don't know. After the Olympics, we all came back and we did nothing, and then we had our baby, and I really didn't. It was probably the longest that I really hadn't done anything to do with swimming. I think I was about 6 weeks of absolutely nothing until the other week I went to Vienna. So even the first week, my athletes were back in the water. I didn't write any sessions. I just said, you should probably go and get in the water and swim somewhere. And I don't want to know anything about it. And then I've started sending sessions for the last 2 weeks. But we've really started everything. We've started back, but we've started everything very low key. I've been sending 8 sessions a week this week and last week, but I'm also encouraging them not to swim all 8 sessions, but to try to do other sports. Siobhan enjoys spin biking. She's learning how to sail. Some of them, like Kregor Zirk's been on his bike. He bought a time trial bike as well, getting into some speed cycling. That I'm trying to get them all to do other sports right now and do something, because I feel like regardless of who you are, 4 years is a long time, and you need to be motivated. So you don't need to go too hard right now.
Yeah.
Siobhan will go to the World Short Course. We'll be at World Cups, actually. That'll be the first time. And I told the athletes this, obviously, when we were planning our baby, but I said, you know, you won't see me until the World Cups, and I'll go out to Hong Kong next week. And then we'll go to the World Cup from there. But that was always our plan. And some of the athletes want to go to World Short Course. So they took us, what I would consider after the Olympics, a smaller break. And then they're going to take a long break after World Short Course. Whereas some of them are taking their longer break now and not going to World Short Course and then coming back. And, you know, I think with all of them, we'll just see how we go from there. I would anticipate, I think my athletes who go to World Short Course and we're in Paris will probably take at least 4 months off after that, if they are even considering going to LA.
Wow. Nice. Let's go back to this. How do you record your workouts and file them? I like this little filing system you've got, and how you type them up.
Well, I like to have my workouts look a certain way. I haven't coached, so I moved. I used to coach in Vancouver, in Canada, and I left Vancouver in 2012, and that was the last time that I coached people who spoke English as a first language. So since then, I've been trying to communicate my ideas around workouts in different ways, and they all speak very good English. My athletes, most of them better than me, but they all do speak at least 2 languages, most of them 3 languages. So for me, communication is important, and I like to make things look a certain way. When I was at Kenyon College, I took art history. I would have taken art, but I didn't have enough time with swimming. So it's got to look a certain way. So all my workouts have this look. Here's another one.
What do you use? You use just a Google Doc?
This is a Word document, just a Word document. There are some little cheats that I have. So if you look on this one here, if I wanted to write pink 5, it'll make it automatically for me like that. Or if I make some other little let's see, the other little things. I think heart rate is one, maybe. Yeah, heart rate does that. So I've got some little like, I actually program in autocorrects that will do that. Some of them are just boxes. Like this is a text box. This is a text box. This is a text box. So some of them are just like that. The
Nice.
text box here.
Now, what about your
And
weekly
then
schedule? How do you break that down?
like what
How
program
do
do
you
we use, or
decide
how do
how
we?
no, how do you decide what you're doing each workout and when you do it?
Typically, we've been doing a 10 session, 10 sessions in the pool. So we usually do double, double, single, double, double, single. And there we kind of have, I have two main templates that I use. Monday night and Thursday night are usually our focus, like harder sessions, typically speaking. The Monday morning and Thursday morning are prep sessions for that, where we'll do a little bit of speed in the context of a more aerobic workout, usually with some technical components. And then depending on the focus, like if we're in more of a training focus, the week will look in one way. And if we're in more of a competition type focus, the week will look in a different way. But typically our Wednesday and our Saturday, which are singles, they're usually very easy workouts. Most of my squad are a lot older than most training squads. So I think my youngest athlete right now is Kregor's 25 and he's a dad, and Siobhan's, getting older, and we have 2 or 3 athletes over 30 in our training squad. So recovery becomes very important. If I over program, then they're off. They're cooked for 3-4 days. So I have to be very careful with that. So our easy workouts are in our single days, and they're very easy. Yeah.
Have you ever thought about playing with that? Like, and again, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just asking you. Have you thought about using recovery as sleep rather than swim recovery? Like maybe cutting down to 9 or 8 or 7, something like that, and giving them more time to sleep or get some sort of active recovery outside of the pool.
Mm-hmm. First, we don't get up early, so our training is in the morning. Our morning training is typically around 9 a.m. So
That's nice.
we're not really missing any sleep. And they have either like a Whoop or an Aura ring or any of those type of things. So we are monitoring their recovery, and
Nice.
they usually seem to be pretty good. I'm trying to get them to train less rather than more. I'm definitely not the one that's trying to get them to do extra workouts. A lot of the time, especially when we're in Flagstaff, what we like about Flagstaff is that it's a little college town up in the mountains, and there's stuff to do. We can go spin classing, we can go climbing. I like to boulder when we're up there, and a lot of the athletes would join. Russell Mark came up last time. We got him out to the bouldering gym every day as well. It's great. So I'm usually trying to bring them back and have them train less, because I agree. Like, let's do the minimum possible. I have thought about switching to a 9 workout template this season, but also, I don't feel like we have to do 2 hours plus on every session. If I know we have 10 workouts, I know we can also take a little bit of time to relax and do a lot of skills. Because sometimes those, we try to do a lot of video, and that takes time. Right now, for the past, starting in I think March, every morning training we're doing turn focus video work. And that becomes, so what used to be a 300 swim down has now, so at the end of the workouts, I would always write 300 swim down. And now I write 3 100s where it's 15, some kind of variation of 15 meters fast, and then the rest of the way easy. And we try to get the video on those 15s. But that makes, 300 would have been maybe 5 minutes of easy swimming, and now it's maybe 10 minutes or 15 minutes. So some of those things take time, and we have time. Like they're not going to school, they're not doing a job, so it's not like 10 sessions is always killing it for 2 hours every session.
What about the gym side of it? How do you feel about strength in the events that they're doing? Let's say 200. Talk about 200 strength and the importance of it, and how it applies, or what applies from the dry land to the 200 the most.
Dryland is an area where I don't have a lot of direct control, because I work with a lot of different athletes from a lot of different teams. They have their own dryland coaches, so I do liaise with the dryland coaches, and I kind of direct how many sessions they should be doing or what the type of dryland work they should be doing based on the timing of our season. But it's a point of the training for us where in the past I've been a little bit more taking more of a back seat. Then I will talk with the athletes about how their dryland is fitting into their program. So if I'm seeing them be, and that's an area where we'll pull back. If I think that they're looking very fatigued and it's not because of what they're doing in the pool, I will talk to them about how their dryland is looking. I mean, I think you have to be pretty strong for sure. That's why one of the reasons I like going to the climbing gym. I think going to the climbing gym is a great method of strength training for swimmers because it's all body weight. A lot of it is, tension within your body and holding yourself in certain positions. Breathing becomes important. I like that type of thing. Some of the athletes really enjoy being in the gym and feeling strong, and some of them don't.
Yeah.
Some people are naturally strong. Siobhan's naturally strong. We had a good conversation with her strength coach as we came up to the Paris Olympics, as we had in the year before we had Fukuoka World Championships, and then I think we had about 6 weeks or maybe a bit longer, and then we went to the Asian Games, which was an 8-day competition, which we fully rested for, and she was the best time in her 100 free in Asian Games. I think she was 52.2 or 52.1. I can't remember now. But then we went straight to the World Cups, and then she went to Berlin World Cup and went 52.0, and then went to Athens, and then Budapest, and in Budapest in the 200, I think she was 154.0. So for me, I'm looking at that from a training perspective, and I think, well, we've had 4 weeks now of competitions, and she's swum really well all the way through. So I talked to her strength coach, and I said, well, you should do whatever you did to get her ready for that. And he was like, well, I didn't really do anything. I just left her on her own. And I said, well, that's what you should do then. Answered your question, didn't you? So, yeah.
I love it. Good stuff, man. Well, I appreciate you sharing. What's next? I mean, you're doing the World Cups. In terms of the coaching education, where do you see that going?
I don't know exactly where I see it going. I have been working a little bit with World Aquatics to do some of their, like I did this level 1 out in India, which was fantastic. It was really great learning for me. It was my first time in India. I didn't have a lot of free time, unfortunately. It was my first time running the course, and running a course is very different than, doing a podcast with you or even doing a talk about what we do day to day. There's, for me, there's little prep in that because I'm talking about what I do all the time. Right. Running a course where there's a curriculum and the students have to be evaluated in a pass fail is a lot different. So that was a big learning for me in a really positive way. But yeah, I am trying to do a little bit more of the coach education piece. I just try to reach out and connect with a lot of coaches around the world. I think, and you do a really good job with that. And everywhere I go, people ask about Brett Hawke's podcast. So I say, I've never heard of him. I don't know who that guy is. Maybe I should look him up. No, but yeah, it's interesting to me, when you see, if you see number of followers on YouTube or Instagram or whatever, and that's a number, it doesn't really mean much. But when you go, like when I go to this city in India and people are talking about, oh, I saw this on Instagram or this, right. And it kind of makes you realize that, those are people around the world that are watching and listening. And I'm not a very extroverted person. I don't typically I'm very happy sitting here in my house in the middle of the woods and taking my dog for a walk and, hanging out with my daughter. My first thought is not to put stuff out on the internet. So I'm trying to kind of set myself a little bit of a challenge to post on my website more often with some resources, or to do some of these extra things. Use Instagram to share some pictures and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So we'll see how it goes, and if it develops into something more, then that'll be fun.
Cool. Well, I appreciate you sharing here, man. It's always good to chat with you, and congrats
Yeah.
on the baby again. And hope that all goes well. And yeah, again, you're pretty much off the hook for the first 12 months, but it'll start to swing back your way after that, But
Yeah, that's what I hear. That's what I hear. So that's and I'm thinking, like, if I'm doing some more coach education, then it gives me a little bit more leeway when I can do things. So that's my
yeah,
goal.
don't schedule too much of that. Because when you get home, it's like, all right, you're on.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I might appreciate it. Thanks for sharing today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on, and I'll be following your sprint revolution and your new job in the swim team. See how
Appreciate
that
it, man.
goes. I'm excited for you.
Yeah.
If anyone calls me for a 50, I'm sending them to you. So
Yeah, send them
there you
straight to
go.
me. I got it covered. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks. I
Yeah.
appreciate it, man. Take care. Bye.
All right. Thank you. Ciao.